I promised you something last episode. I told you that one of the words for very boring is itself the opposite of boring. That it is one of the most colorful, most alive, most unexpectedly joyful words in the English language. And I meant every word of that. But here's what I didn't tell you. That same word, this bright, vivid, almost comedic word, has a history so strange, so specific, so perfectly absurd, that when I tell you where it comes from, you're going to laugh. And then you're going to use it for the rest of your life. Stay with me. 5 words, one with an absurd and perfect origin story, one so elegant it turns boredom into literature, one that native speakers reach for when they want to describe not just something boring, but something that commits to being boring with almost impressive dedication. After this episode, very boring will be the most boring thing about your vocabulary. Let me describe something to you. A meeting. You know, this meeting, you have been in this meeting. Perhaps you're in this meeting right now, watching this video secretly under the table on your phone. And if so, I respect you completely. The meeting was supposed to last an hour. It is now in its 2nd hour. Nothing has been decided. The same 3 points have been made 11 times by 4. Different people. Someone is talking about a process that affects no one in the room. Someone else is nodding with the specific expression of a person who checked out 40 minutes ago but has not yet found an exit. The fluorescent light above you is doing something faintly wrong. The chair is uncomfortable in a way that reveals itself slowly, vertebra by vertebra. And you think quietly, privately, in the back of your mind where honest thoughts live, this is very boring. Is it? Or is it something more specific than that? Because boredom, real boredom, has textures, temperatures, speeds. There is the boredom of pure emptiness, a waiting room with nothing to look at, nothing to think about, nothing to do but exist in time and feel it moving badly. There's the boredom of repetition, something that was perhaps interesting once the first time and has been repeated so many times since that the original interest has been worn completely smooth. There is the boredom of obligation, sitting through something you did not choose, cannot leave, and must pretend to engage with while every part of you is somewhere else. Entirely. And there is the special, almost magnificent boredom of something that has committed fully, wholeheartedly, without apology, to being the least interesting thing in the known universe. Very boring covers none of these. It is itself, ironically, the most boring possible description of boredom. Let's fix that. The 5 words. Out loud, everyone. Even for boredom, the right word is worth saying properly. Ward 1. Tedious. It was absolutely tedious. Start here, your first most versatile replacement. Tedious is slow boredom. Boredom that drags, from the Latin tedium, weariness, disgust, the specific exhaustion of something that goes on longer than any reasonable person could justify. Tedious things are not just uninteresting, they are uninteresting across time. They ask you to remain present for a duration that feels like a punishment you did not know you were receiving. The process is tedious, 40 steps where 5 would do. I won't lie to you, the early stages are tedious, but they are necessary. He gave a tedious speech, 40 minutes on a topic that needed 5. That last sentence, 40 minutes on a topic that needed 5. That is the specific crime of tedious, not just boring, but boring in a way that wastes time. That takes something from you, your minutes, your attention, your willingness to engage, and gives nothing back. Use tedious when boredom is measured in duration, when something goes on and on and on past the point where anyone asked it to. Word 2, monotonous. The work was deeply monotonous. Now we add repetition. Monotonous comes from the Greek mono one and tonos, tone one tone, the same note repeated without variation, without development, without the relief of change. Music needs variation. Conversation needs variation. Life needs variation. The human brain was built for pattern recognition, but it was also built to need the pattern broken occasionally, to need something new, to need surprise and contrast, and the small daily reassurance that existence contains more than one note. Monotonous things deny it, all of that. The days became monotonous, same time, same desk, same four walls, same sequence of tasks. His voice was monotonous, not unpleasant, just unchanging. By the third minute, the words stopped reaching me. There's something almost hypnotic about truly monotonous work. Hypnotic and quietly crushing. Hypnotic and quietly crushing. That is monotonous. Not aggressive boredom, sedative boredom, the kind that doesn't announce itself but accumulates day by day until one morning you realize you cannot remember the last time something surprised you. Use monotonous when boredom comes from sameness, from the removal of variation from one note played forever. Word 3, dreary. It was a dreary afternoon. The whole experience was dreary. Now we change the weather. Because dreary is boredom with atmosphere. Boredom that has seeped into the environment itself, into the light, the color, the temperature of a place or a situation. Dreary comes from Old English, drooric, originally meaning sad, sorrowful, bloody, even. It has softened over 1,000 years into something more gray than red, something damp, something overcast. Dreary is the word for the particular quality of a gray Tuesday in November when nothing is wrong, exactly. Nothing you could name, nothing that would hold up in. Conversation as a legitimate complaint, but everything is slightly less than it should be. It was a dreary town, not ugly, not unpleasant, just somehow stripped of anything that might catch your eye. The office was dreary in a way that seemed almost deliberate, as though someone had specifically removed everything interesting. She described her marriage in the saddest possible terms. Not unhappy, she said, just dreary. That last sentence, not unhappy, just dreary. Because dreary is the boredom of a life that is fine, technically fine, without specific complaint, but from which something essential, color, surprise, aliveness, has quietly departed. Use dreary when boredom has become an atmosphere, when it has stopped being an event and become a climate. Word 4, the elegant one, insipid. The conversation was insipid. It was well made, but utterly insipid. Now we enter the vocabulary of taste. Because insipid is a word that began in the mouth and moved into the mind, and in doing so became one of the most precise and quietly devastating words for a particular kind of boring that English possesses. From the Latin insipidus, without taste, without flavor, technically food, technically nourishment, but offering none of the pleasure, none of the satisfaction, none of the sensory experience that makes eating something other than mere survival. Applied to ideas, to conversation, to art, to people. Insipid means exactly the same thing, present. Functional, technically fulfilling the requirements of the category. But flavorless, empty of everything that would make it worth having. The film was technically competent and completely insipid, 2 hours of movement with nothing behind it. She found the conversation insipid, polite surfaces with no depth beneath them. There is a particular type of insipid cleverness that mistakes the absence of error for the presence of thought. That last sentence, the absence of error mistaken for the presence of thought. That is insipid in its most dangerous form, not obvious boredom, but the boredom of something that looks like substance and contains none. Use insipid when something fails, not through incompetence, but through the absence of any genuine flavor, any genuine life, any genuine risk. When something played it so safe that it became nothing at all. Ward 5, the joyful one, soul-crushing. No. I'm joking. Mind-numbing. Getting closer, but still not it. The word I promised you, dull as dishwater. Honestly, it was dull as dishwater. Wait. I know what you're thinking. That's a phrase, that's 3 words, not 1. You're right, but stay with me because this phrase has an origin story so specific, so perfectly absurd, that it earns its place on this list through sheer character. Alone. Actually, let me give you the real word 5 first, and then tell you the story. Vapid. The speech was vapid. I've never sat through anything quite so vapid. Vapid, from the Latin vapidus, flat, stale, wine that has lost its spirit, liquid from which the life has evaporated, leaving behind the form of a drink without any of the qualities that made it worth drinking. The interview was vapid, beautiful answers with nothing inside them. He was charming and completely vapid. You would finish a conversation and realize you'd received nothing. There is a vapid quality to certain kinds of success, the achievement present, the meaning absent. The achievement present, the meaning absent that is vapid. It looks like the thing, it has the shape of the thing, but the spirit, the vapor, the life, the essential quality that made it worth having has gone. Now, the origin story I promised. Because vapid connects through centuries of English usage, through kitchens and taverns and the domestic language of ordinary life to the phrase I mentioned, dull as dishwater. Dishwater, the gray, lukewarm, used water left at the bottom of the basin after the washing up is done, containing faint traces of everything that passed through it. Useful for nothing. Interesting to no one, the most comprehensively, committedly uninteresting substance a kitchen produces. The phrase appeared in English in the 1700s, dull as dishwater, and it became one of the most beloved expressions in the language for one simple reason. It is specific, not just dull, not just boring, dull as something so particular, so universally recognizable, so perfectly mundane, that every person who hears it immediately sees it, smells it almost, and laughs, because the comparison is so exactly right. The date was, I'm sorry to say, dull as dishwater, nice enough man, nothing behind his eyes. I tried to read the report, dull as dishwater. I got to page 3. The town had a reputation for being charming. It was, in fact, dull as dishwater. We left after one night. This phrase has survived 300 years because it earns its laugh every single time, because it finds the most gloriously ordinary image for the most ordinary of experiences, and in doing so makes the ordinary funny. And making boredom funny is one of the most human things language ever learned to do. Every episode, a story Today, the story is an afternoon. The most boring afternoon imaginable. Not dramatically boring, not interestingly boring, just an afternoon. It begins with a mandatory work seminar. The topic is compliance. The presenter reads directly from slides. The slides are in a font that seems designed to resist being read. The room is slightly too warm. Tedious. Time moving like cold honey. The seminar ends. There's a networking lunch. The conversation at your table covers the weather, the traffic, and the weather again, the same observations, the same responses, round like a carousel with nothing on it. Monotonous. One tone, no variation. You walk back to the office through streets that are somehow inexplicably, on a perfectly adequate day, gray, not dark, not cold, just gray. Everything slightly less than. It could be dreary, the weather of the soul. Back at your desk, someone sends a company-wide email. It is long. It uses many words. At the end of it, you realize it has communicated nothing. It has the shape of information without any actual content inside. Insipid form without flavor. And then, mercifully, the day ends. Your friend calls, "How was your day?" You pause, you consider all of it, the slides, the carousel conversation, the gray streets, the empty email. Honestly, you say, dull as dishwater. And somehow just saying it, just finding the exactly right words, makes the whole thing funnier than it was, makes it survivable, makes it almost a story worth telling. Tedious, monotonous, dreary, insipid, dull as dishwater. One afternoon, 5 shades of boring. And the secret, the real secret, is that having the right word for something makes it smaller, less powerful, more manageable. Even boredom, named precisely, loses some of its hold. That is what language does. That is why we are here. Your challenge this week: think of the most boring experience of your life. The meeting, the commute, the lecture, the dinner party, the film you will never get back, the Sunday afternoon that somehow lasted 11 years. Write one sentence, one of today's 5 words. Your real, specific, gloriously boring experience. I read every comment. I reply to everyone. And I will say this, the boring experiences described well are often the funniest sentences in the comments. Come and make me laugh. Today, you learned 5 words that replace very boring and actually do justice to the magnificent, specific, deeply human experience of being bored. Tedious, boredom that drags, that takes from you across time. Monotonous, one note, no variation, the same and the same and the same. Dreary boredom, that becomes a climate. Gray light, gray day, gray everything. Insipid, the form without the flavor, the achievement without the meaning. Dull as dishwater, 300 years old, still exactly right, still making people laugh. Next episode, very loud. And I need to tell you now, one of those words was invented to describe a single specific moment in history. A moment so overwhelmingly, so physically, so completely loud that the people who survived it reported that they felt it before they heard it. That moment happened over 100 years ago. The word it gave English has never stopped echoing. If this series has made English feel less like a subject and more like a place you want to live, subscribe. Because every week we find another room. And none of them, I promise you, are dull as dishwater. I'll see you in the next one.